What's up, Taiwan? I'm Eric Gao, bringing you the latest news from here in Taipei. Taiwan is celebrating after its national baseball team won the WBSC Premier 12 tournament in Tokyo. Competing as Chinese Taipei, Taiwan won it all after shutting out defending champions Japan 4-0 in the gold medal match on Sunday. The victory is Taiwan's first major international professional baseball title at the senior men's level. Taiwan's triumph snapped Team Japan's 27-game win streak. After the sentencing of 45 of the so-called Hong Kong 47 pro-democracy activists under a new national security law, civic groups here in Taiwan are protesting the decision. Chris Gorn reports from Taipei.
民主自由本无罪，一国两制是谎言。
More civil society groups here in Taipei are condemning the arrest and conviction of a group of Hong Kong pro-democracy activists known as the Hong Kong 47 and is calling for their release.
第一，中共应立即释放包括此次宣判的45人及所有遭受不公平司法审判的民主运动人士。第二，中共应立即撤销对所有香港民主运动人士的政治指控。第三。 中共应立即撤回国安法，实行真普选，恢复香港民主。
All but 2 of the 47 activists and former politicians were convicted last week under a Beijing-imposed national security law. Authorities say the 47's holding of an unofficial primary for legislative candidates was an attempt to overthrow the government. Human rights groups and leaders around the world have condemned the sentencing, calling it an unjust attempt to suppress dissent. Those sentiments were echoed by those here today, who say that the case has significance for Taiwan as well.
如果你主权上市之后，其实不用谈了。所以这个是警告我们台湾人民，尤其年轻朋友，台湾的民主、台湾的自由人权得来不易，应该更珍惜。
It reminds me that our history about white terror. Do you know 白色恐怖? Yes. So the history is never the past. China, they say they want to beat us every day, or so of course we are a little bit afraid of China. Maybe one day they will send their army to us, but we still have to do this right.
While the civil groups here say there's little chance of the 45 Hong Kong activists to be released or for political rights to return to Hong Kong, they say they'll keep working to support those fighting for democracy in the territory. Fu Ha Hong and Chris Gorin for TaiwanPlus.
Local Taiwanese dentists are protesting against a new government program aimed at improving dental care in rural areas. It would expand opportunities for foreign-educated dentists to get internships here in Taiwan, and the dentists worry that they are not properly qualified. Cadence Quaranta reports.
Hundreds of Taiwanese dentists and dental students march in Taipei, calling for tighter restrictions on opportunities for dentists who are educated overseas to work in Taiwan. They say there should be a limit on the number of internship spots for foreign-educated dentists in Taiwan, which they call "bobo dentists," because some study in Poland. And they are opposing a new $73 million government plan that aims to improve dental care in rural areas, because it would expand opportunities for foreign-trained dentists to get these internships and potentially work as dentists in Taiwan.
政府为了开波波大门，拟了一个24亿的假偏乡计划。我们要让这24亿真正进入偏乡，我们不能够容许民脂民膏被拿来帮权贵子弟铺当医生的后门。
The concern over these bobo doctors comes after one of them improperly performed a surgery in Taiwan last year, which caused their patient to die. There are also concerns that their training overseas does not adequately qualify them to practice medicine in Taiwan, because a loophole in Taiwanese laws exempts some of them from one of the tests normally required to get a medical license here. But a group of internationally educated dentists push back against these claims, arguing their training is sufficient.
我们今天提供了多张的照片与资料，证明 国际牙医学生在海外学习期间完成严格的临床实习，临床实作非常的扎实，相较台湾实习1年，国际牙医都实习2年以上。
In response to the debate, the health ministry said that eligibility requirements for foreign-educated medical professionals may get stricter in the future. Eason Chen and Cadence Quaranta for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan has a new labor minister after the previous one resigned in the wake of a workplace bullying scandal. The newly appointed minister, legislator Hong Seung-han, has already taken office. His predecessor, He Pei-san, stepped down after illegal working conditions and alleged severe workplace bullying came to light earlier this month after a labor ministry employee's suicide. Hong is a former civil rights activist and has been tasked by the premier to come up with new labor policies to protect workers. Public employees in Taiwan currently do not have the same legal workplace protections as private sector workers. The Guardian is reporting that Taiwan's former President Tsai Ing-wen was supposed to visit the UK last month, but was stopped by the British Foreign Office. Citing a leaked letter, Tsai was originally going to spend 2 days in London and could have addressed Parliament. However, an anonymous source said the UK Foreign Office asked Tsai to postpone her visit because Foreign Secretary David Lammy was visiting China at the same time. Beijing opposes high-level visits by Taiwanese politicians to other countries, and the office worried that Tsai's trip could have interfered with Lammy's. Tsai was in Europe for her first international trip since leaving office. She visited France, Belgium, and the Czech Republic. There has been talk of inviting Tsai to visit the UK next spring, but that may conflict with another high-level British visit to China. Delegates from nations across the globe have arrived in the South Korean city of Busan, aiming to secure a legally binding global treaty to address plastic pollution. They'll debate whether the deal should slash production or center on waste management. The treaty could become the most significant pact to address global climate warming emissions since the 2015 Paris Agreement. Rosie Greninger reports.
Hundreds of environmental activists take to the streets of South Korea's Busan as the 5th session of the United Nations Intergovernmental Committee, or INC5, gets underway in the city. The session aims to secure a world-first international treaty to curb the explosive growth of plastic pollution, and these demonstrators hope the delegates live up to the promise.
So INC5 and the Global Plastics Treaty represents a once-in-a-generation opportunity for us to address plastic pollution, what is a global problem at a global scale. And so we're here to demand that leaders from around the world step up and protect human health, our climate, and biodiversity from the scourge of plastic.
Nearly 500 million tons of plastic waste are produced each year, more than double the amount from 2 decades ago. It's proven a major issue, with pollution piling up in rivers and oceans and particles of plastic even found in clouds and human breast milk. To address the issue, the session's delegates from 175 countries will spend the next week negotiating an agreement that will be legally binding globally. Policies raised over the past 4 sessions include capping new plastic production at 2020 levels and mandating new products be made with at least 40% recycled plastic, something many developing countries are on board with as they struggle to cope with waste.
Reusable plastic cups is a very good idea because Sri Lanka facing huge plastic pollution using the single-use plastic cups and single-use items.
A broad coalition of countries has also supported going a step further by reining in production with a focus on restricting single-use plastics. That notion even backed by the US, a major plastics producer, and supported by environmental activists.
We can't look at the waste management solutions without looking at production caps. We have to slow down and start phasing out of plastic production and plastic products.
But the idea has some powerful opposers. Major producers of plastics and the fossil fuels used to make those materials, including China, Russia, Saudi Arabia, and Iran, want to focus on waste management. That's despite scientists saying recycling isn't keeping up with production, estimating only 9% of plastic waste is recycled globally. There are also fears the United States' incoming Trump administration could withdraw US support. Those lingering divisions are casting doubt on whether an agreement will be reached.
플라스틱 감축 목표에 대한 논의도 지금 진전이 전혀 되고 있지가 않고, 그리고 플라스틱 생산국하고 이제 소비국 간의 어떤 입장 차이가 실질적인 어떤 그 플라스틱 원료 생산 감축에 대한 합의를 굉장히 어렵게 하고 있고.
But while there are competing approaches to reduce plastic pollution, the broad consensus among delegates is that waste must be reduced. At the rate things are going, without a treaty, plastic production will double by 2050 and triple by 2060. an outcome no one here wants to see. And while debate is expected throughout the week, hopes are high that there will be some action towards lowering plastic pollution, whether or not session delegates agree on a full final treaty. Alex Chen and Rosie Greninger for TaiwanPlus.
Residents of a Manila slum are picking through the ashes after a massive fire ripped through their homes.
Bali, inuna namin yung mga anak namin na alikasin bago yung mga gamit namin na ilikas din.
Thousands of people have been displaced after a blaze engulfed a shantytown near a port in the Philippine capital on Sunday, destroying hundreds of buildings. There have been no reports of injuries or deaths. The cause of the blaze remains unknown, though faulty electric wiring is a common culprit in such incidents.
Siyempre, nanlulo mo, wala nang hanap buhay, wala pang bahay. Lahat wala eh. Hindi ka na nga makakain. Grabe itong inabot namin. Papasko pa naman.
The country has a poor record in enforcing fire safety in these densely populated communities where more than 30% of the city's residents live. The Freedom Crossing Film Festival has just opened at the Penn Museum in Philadelphia. It's an event supporting independent films and documentaries from Taiwan. To find out more about the works involved, Sandy Chi sat down with curator Minghua Xiao.
Minghua, can you tell us about the origin of the festival? How did it all start?
The film festival, Freedom Crossing Film Festival, was started during the pandemic. And during the pandemic, we all have a deep concern about this full crisis of the whole humanity. And at that time, we were thinking about what we can do to help people to deliver their free spirit to reach outside of the world when everybody was forced to stay inside. So at that time, we were thinking the spirit of freedom at that critical moment is the most important thing. So I started to create and curating the themes of life and the death. And luckily, I find there are a lot of good documentaries and films in Taiwan that happen to care about those issues, about people's life. So I bring them over to the film festival.
Among all the films featured at the festival, there is Untold Her Story. What makes this film special?
There are not too many stories about white terror area in Taiwan, and this one is definitely a significant one. Especially the films address the female experience for the prisoners in Green Island during the 1950s to 1970s. And this period of time is a very special time when Taiwan was under authoritarian government, and there were a lot of people who lose their freedom if they try to express their rights, their opinions, or if they were acting something disobeying the government's order. So Taiwan had experienced such a dark time, and then we overcome this history and transform our country to a liberal democracy. And right now we are confident enough to look back to the history at that time and to reflect that history through the individual and the personal experience and to see those women as a person, not as a criminals or the prisoner.
That was Minghua Xiao, curator of the Freedom Crossing Film Festival. And thanks for joining us here on What's Up Taiwan. Finally, we leave you with images of Mars in East London. There's a giant replica of the Red Planet in the old Royal Navy College in Greenwich. I'm Eric Gao. Take care, and we'll see you next time.